and welcome to the Women's Soccer Show. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Ali.
And we're in I don't know, what's a good way to describe this? It's like Candyland. We have WSL and NWSL now.
It's amazing. Yeah, hype. We could talk about the cracking opener game that is Arsenal versus Brighton.
We could
talk about the Man City Aston Villa absolute 7-goal thriller.
We could.
But no, the game we have to talk about is the Liverpool-Chelsea game where Liverpool won 2-1. This game was so weird.
It was so wild.
Do you know what, though? I think me and you are going to have very different opinions on it, because I personally think it wasn't a great game. The score is why it's got everybody talking.
I want to make a distinguishment, though. I was entertained. I was fully entertained. Was it great football? No. Was I entertained? You bet I was.
So, no.
How could you not be?
It was so boring. All 3 goals were penalties. It was so boring.
If you think that makes it boring, you are very wrong. I mean, look, I think I know what you're getting at, because I was disappointed by Chelsea's style of play. I mean, usually I'm up for watching any game that Chelsea plays in because they're just simply so fun to watch.
Exactly.
This was not the Chelsea that we are used to. It was direct. It was one-dimensional. There was no midfield whatsoever, to speak of. It was simply find Kirby, find Kerr over the top, and that's how we're going to score. I mean, I'm very disappointed in the Chelsea midfield. It's weird to say, while they were able to maintain 70% of possession, the midfield still didn't do their job, but it's what happened.
And that's what I mean. It wasn't entertaining because, like you said, it was very predictable.
Absolutely nothing about this game was predictable, starting from the scoreline.
Because it became predictable. Because, like you said, it was literally, oh, right, they've got the ball. Okay, they're going to go for Kirby. All right, they've got the ball. Oh, Kirby's not free, so they're going to go for Kerr. Oh, wait, they've gone Kirby Anchor.
I didn't find that.
It
no,
was so
I didn't,
boring.
No, I didn't find that. I just was not super impressed. There was a different combination, I think. The 3 center midfielders of Ingle, Cuthbert, and Wrighton. And obviously, we had Harder on the bench. We had Meal Day on the bench. And I just have to talk about, we're talking about Chelsea already, so let's stay on this.
Yeah.
I love Emma Hayes with all of my heart, and Emma Hayes can do no wrong. And maybe this is in the longer term plan of a long, brilliant scheme, and this was a part of it.
Yeah.
Or this game was a bit mismanaged, and dare I say, Emma Hayes might have been a little too casual coming into this game against Liverpool, thinking that she could start a new lineup, get some subs in who haven't gotten game minutes in a Chelsea shirt yet, and wanting to get those out from under them. And that's all good and well. And also, I think it bit them in the butt a little bit.
I had this argument, actually, with a Man City fan on the way to the West Ham game on Sunday, because you go on about experience, not you personally, but people go on about experience, and they go on about players not getting minutes. How are they supposed to get minutes if you don't play them? You have to play these players. Yeah, but you have to play these players, and these are the games that these players are going to play, because it's not at Stamford Bridge against whoever. It's not going to be against Arsenal or City or United. So,
well, I agree, and I'd say that the season opener is a different feel to a regular season. We're 10 games in and we're playing Liverpool. I would argue that a season opener is actually quite an important game, no matter who you're playing. So yes, and no matter who Chelsea was playing, I hope that they would have gotten these players minutes in a Chelsea shirt. So it's great debuts.
I still think they would have.
Great.
Because the original Opal was supposed to be us. The original Opal was supposed to be Chelsea West Ham. And I still think Emma Hayes would have played those players, especially because it was going to be at Stamford Bridge. I do think Emma Hayes would still have played those players.
Mm-hmm. No, that's what I'm saying.
I just think Chelsea were a little unlucky. I think Liverpool
were... no. You think it was a luck thing?
No, I think Chelsea were unlucky. I think Chelsea were unlucky. I want to give full credit to Liverpool. But I do think that there were certain decisions that went against Chelsea that were a little unlucky. But they didn't earn their own luck in the fact that they were slow, stodgy, not really in it.
Well, I'm not really of the earning your luck mentality. I think that they were offside. it was a penalty, and they didn't. I think that all in all, I love the idea to get everybody some minutes right now and get everybody comfortable, and also the game plan or whatever went wrong with the tactics. It seemed to be underestimating Liverpool and underestimating Matt Beard and the tactics that he could bring in on the Liverpool side, which doesn't usually happen for Chelsea, to be totally honest. Should Chelsea be concerned?
I disagree exactly what you said, saying that Chelsea don't usually do that. They do underestimate teams and have been caught out before it. We saw it last season when they lost against Reading. We saw it when Birmingham beat them 3-2. The season Ellen White's last season. Chelsea, it's form for Chelsea to underestimate a team and get caught out. So I disagree entirely that it has happened to Chelsea more than once that you'd think they'd learn.
Fair enough. But to be concerned about Chelsea?
Oh, no.
Absolutely not.
They lost first game of the season last season and still went on to win the title. Like, I would put the hand wringing away, Chelsea fans. Like, it was a blip.
It was a blip.
You'll be fine.
And also, this is the start to this is a really fun start to the WSL for Liverpool. So let's give credit where credit is due.
Yeah, absolutely.
Liverpool played this game wonderfully. And I want to talk to you specifically about Matt Beard, because you have much experience with Matt Beard, him having coached West Ham previously. So can you speak to what you saw from Matt Beard, like some Matt Beard tactics that he was able to bring to Liverpool, and possibly what he's learned in his experience in the WSL that he brought into this game?
Matt is really very much a play out from the back, and we saw that for their first goal and their penalty. We saw that with Flaherty being the one to bring the thing. He's very good at drawing fouls. That seems to be his main thing. But I think he's more comfortable at Liverpool than he's been at any other club. You know, he's coached at Chelsea, he coached at West Ham, he was briefly at Bristol while Tanya was pregnant, and he was their coach at Bristol for a bit. So, but Liverpool seems to be his like home, and that's where he's the most comfortable. He's brought in players that he knows this transfer window. So he's brought in Gilly from West Ham. He's brought Shanice van der Sar back over. She played at Liverpool for a while. He obviously last season brought Leanne Kernahan from West Ham that he knows really well. He's worked with Megan Campbell before. He's worked with Katie Stengel before over in Boston. So he's brought, I think that is his key thing, is that he has built a squad of some very talented players, and he's built players that he is comfortable with and knows, and they know him well. And I think that's why we saw such a really comfortable Liverpool in that game. Yes, Gilly screwed up within the first 3 minutes. And to be honest, I love Jill. You know, I have a lot of respect. She's ex-West Ham captain. But that is a very typical Gilly Flaherty foul, which is you go in rash, you leave the leg, the player goes down.
Yeah, we don't have to debate whether she got ball on that one.
Not at all. The amount of time she did that at Arsenal, West Ham, everybody. It's a typical head rush first few minutes of the game. But then to come back from that, because a lesser team would have crumbled. You're going, what, 1-0 down against Chelsea 3 minutes in? And then we saw a very defensively sound Liverpool. Absolutely. And I think that's what screwed Chelsea over, is that, again, they didn't really figure out how defensively sound Liverpool were going to be. But they didn't let them have anything. They, like you said, that's 70%, but a lot of it was just kicking about between themselves because they couldn't quite get past. And that's the beauty.
Totally. I think you nailed it. They absolutely crushed the transfer window in such a beautiful way. And Matt Beard is out here for a redemption story. He wants to coach in the WSL, and he wants to win in the WSL.
He's the Beth Mead of coaches.
Exactly. He is on that Beth Mead redemption revenge trail 100%. I want to call out 2 players on Liverpool before we move on. Obviously, we have to call out Katie Stengel, who scored both goals. Katie Stengel also was the one who got fouled in the penalty box to draw that last penalty kick that allowed her to then bury that. And I've got to call out Leanne Kernan, who was Liverpool's top scorer last year and unfortunately got in a nasty tackle and got really hurt. So we really hope that she is able to return soon this season. That was a massive loss for Liverpool. Massive. Like, we need to draw a line under that, because I think if people see a different Liverpool from this weekend to next, they're going to question if that was a fluke win. And I think it has to be understood that she is a core piece of this team that will be missing. We are here with Rob Pratly, who is a senior editor at the Chelsea Social and the CFCW Social, the host of the podcast at the Believe Network, and has been featured on BBC Sport, Her Football Hub, and London Blue Pod. Woof. Wow. Welcome to the pod, Rob.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. It's great to be here. And again, bizarrely, I'm going to be chatting about none of those topics today.
Yes. So, fun story before we kick this off about what you're here to talk about, because you're here to talk City. And you are here to talk City because your wonderful thread about City women came gracing across my For You page. And then we got to chatting a little on DMs. And yeah, I was really happy to see that somebody with as many followers as you was kind of highlighting this, and the fact that nobody was really talking about what's happening at City for a long time. We have been, and now we are all three here to talk more about it and talk about City then, now, and in the future.
I would like to clarify again. It's one of those things I probably phrased it a bit poorly. I feel that a lot of the sort of less sort of mainstream, as per se, media accounts have covered it really well. I have to give real credit to Becky at MCFCW Extra. She, has spoken about it for a long time, and their sort of page have covered it for a long time. There are a number of Manchester City women fans I know who have spoke very eruditely on the subject, and also have asked the club to provide more evidence and indeed pressure journalists. And it's been a case that I think there's been an unwillingness, almost, maybe an unwillingness, or perhaps a sort of naivety to actually confront the issue. And I feel that it's finally got to a point now where it's sort of the elephant in the room has become too large, and they actually have to acknowledge it and address it to an extent.
Cannot agree more. But so let's talk about the elephant in the room. Gareth Taylor. Is it all his fault, really?
No, I'm not just gonna sit here all the time and just bash Gareth Taylor and say, oh yeah, Taylor's a bit. Like, people who follow me on Twitter, anyone that talks to a person will know my thoughts on Gareth Taylor. I said at the time I thought it was a surprise appointment considering his experiences in the men's youth game. He has been quite critical before. Manchester City's incredibly good EDS academy. The EDS at Manchester City is incredibly good, and yet Taylor was very, very critical. But at the same time, I also think you've got to look fundamentally at sort of the core structure. I think there's maybe been a little bit of complacency that's set in, possibly because the men's side is so dominant at this, so well run. There's perhaps been the ball and the eye have taken off the ball on the women's side. There's been investment, I think, but not necessarily investment in the right players or at the right time. And there's also been a cultural almost acceptance that they're not going to win the top prizes. So the UWCL and the WSL, I'm including in that. The FA Cup and the Conti Cup, although I believe that all of them are important trophies because there are such few number in there, I think it's fair to say that both the other two are prized above them. But I think, City's issues do stem from Gareth Taylor, but they're not purely caused by Gareth Taylor. I think that's the big definition and distinction to make, because it's not a case as if suddenly if you remove Gareth Taylor, everything will sort itself out. And I think, at times maybe people take that view, but at the end of the day, you're doomed to repeat it unless you actually alter it.
Okay, I love that. So I guess there's so many roads we can go down, and I'd like to go down all of them, but let's start with this one. When you say that, that my first thought is around the players that they've lost, but not only that, the players that they simply didn't go out and try to sign in this last transfer window. So at a certain point, they must have known who they were going to be losing. And it seems that there was not as much forward thinking as there should have been to go out in the transfer window and correct those problems.
Yeah, I mean, now that the deals have happened, I can say, that it was well known as of last January as a minimum, both Lucy Bronze and Caroline Weir weren't resigning. They knew that in January. There were discussions as of February with other sides. There were, offers on the table. From City's perspective, there was almost a bit of a sort of, I think, a naivety around Weir, especially, that they thought eventually she would just end up re-signing. And as time and time passed on, that became less and less sort of likely. Regarding the retirees, first and foremost, I can't blame them for retiring when they did. They're going out on a high,
Of course not.
I think certainly from Jill Scott's perspective, the writing was on the wall as soon as she went out on loan. As for Ellen White, I think the writing was coming on the wall a little bit towards the end of last season. She was no longer the de facto starter. There was obviously Khadija Bunny Shaw, who'd come in for a lot of money. Again, Kelly obviously can play up there as a false nine, or I don't feel you get the most out of her. Again, Mary Fowler's transfer, that was well teased sort of between journalism circles that City were having conversations with Mary Fowler and also with other players as well. I mean, one of the big what ifs, I think, for Manchester City this summer is what if they'd have managed to get a deal done for Katoto, because they were very keen on Katoto. And, hypothetically, we might be sitting in a complete different situation if you're looking at a lineup that maybe has Katoto and then Bunny Shaw sort of supporting it. But ultimately, that didn't happen. And then regarding Walsh and Stanway, I think they are the ones you probably look at. You say they are the real causalities in the manager. Stanway certainly was very, very frustrated at the way she was almost treated as a bit of a... With the injuries, I think it was understandable. But even after that, she got treated a little bit as a utility player and as a
very much so.
Lack of all trades ace of none. And I personally think that was, ridiculous. I think she was one of the best players in the WSL. I think she is one of the most well-rounded players I've seen. She can play a number of positions. I'm sure, again, there was the joke last year, they had a goalkeeper jersey made up for her. I'm sure that if you put her in goal, she would give 100%. I think that's the biggest sort of attribute, and that is why I think, she was the de facto choice for Serena Wiegmann during the Euros sort of triumph. And I think Stanway going to Bayern, she did that interview at Bayern where she talked about being appreciated. And I think it was quite telling that someone who had been at City for so long, and I believe is their record appearance maker, to talk about being appreciated and to suggest they were underappreciated, because that certainly wasn't the case under Nick Cushing. I think it was very, very telling that when Nick Cushing left, there was an outpouring from so many players about how good a manager Nick Cushing was and how well he sort of got them. And as for Kira Walsh, I think she was probably the causality of getting frustrated of Taylor's obstinance to not accept that they were falling behind. Make no mistake, Kira Walsh could have walked into any side this summer. But it's always, I think, concerning when you've got such a high number of top caliber players all leaving the same window. I can't think of another window like it for any WSL side where they've had a similar level of, that turnover.
Look, we're not here in the business to, just sit here and bash head coaches, but that is when the Gareth Taylor conversation really it has to start, because at a certain point, yes, they didn't make the right transfers in the transfer window. Yes, the front office can handle this a lot better. And also when players are speaking of not being appreciated in a certain way, like you just mentioned with Georgia Stanway, there's a certain level of accountability that just simply has to fall on the coach. And we talked a lot last season about how for some reason the scapegoat, if you will, was just the injuries. But you have to look past the injuries to the point of seeing that the tactics weren't being changed around the types of players that he then had to place on the field. For example, Georgia Stanway became this utility player. Jill Scott was playing, center back, center mid, all over the place.
Janine Becky was a defender when you had Ruby Mace on the bench, who is an actual defender.
Right. And these are top caliber professional footballers who not only want to be appreciated on the field, but also want to play within a system where they feel like they're learning and growing and they're improving in their craft. Like, I sit here and question why Beth England chooses to be on the bench for Chelsea year in, year out when she can be getting playing time elsewhere. Frankly, the simple answer of that is that she would like to be learning from Emma Hayes. So at a certain point, it really has to fall in the hands of Gareth Taylor.
I know. I'm going to work on the basis that I think Gareth Taylor will be sacked before the end of October.
Oh, wow.
Because I could see them having a poor start to the season. And I think if that does happen, I think they might wield the axe quite quickly. There is an interesting young core that they've got around City at the moment. They've made some really good signings in the summer. Kasparai being one of them, Mary Fowler being another. I think they could get someone in maybe like Jane Ludlow would be a good, I think, safe pair of hands to sort of...
Everybody wants Jane Ludlow. I wanted Jane Ludlow at West Ham when Matt Beard went. Everybody wants Jane Ludlow.
Exactly. She's, incredibly well-liked. She's incredibly erudite. I think you could maybe go as far as someone like Jill Scott or Karen Bardsley in there as a number two. I think Bardsley is doing her coaching badges. They both command the respect. They know the dressing room. And I think at times when you maybe have situations like this where it's quite clearly quite fractured, it's never a bad thing to bring in an old face and bring in someone who, is one of the girls effectively still. And to be honest, I still see them fighting for that third spot this year. I think they've got enough talent in and around the side. And I think ultimately, I do think they will be there or thereabouts at the end of the season, just purely because they can't afford not to be.
Wow. Hot takes from Rob. Okay. Get Taylor by before the end of October. And I mean, I agree with most of that. The one I'm going to say, I don't love former players coming right back into the locker room. I have experienced that as a player in college, and a senior came back as an assistant coach the next year. And granted, maybe this is a different story with Jill Scott because she is a legend. But there is still a certain familiarity with a player immediately turned coach that maybe shouldn't be there with a coach. But who knows? Could be wrong. And obviously would love to see that. Rob, thank you so much for coming on. We're so excited to have you, and we'll have to have you back to talk United, to talk Arsenal, and of course, to talk Chelsea.
Rob, where can people find you, follow you, and everything else?
Yeah, so firstly, you can find me at RJP Journalism. Again, I would recommend if you want to follow me in the transfer windows, you'll get transfer news. Outside of that, you'll probably just get my innate ranting about other stuff. The much more interesting follows are at the Chelsea Social and at the CSCW Social, our two sort of platforms. Again, great written content, great edits, great video content from our supremely talented sort of team. And occasionally some stuff from me does sneak through as well. And yeah, I just, any support is really, really appreciated. And also, if you have a few minutes, please check out my podcast on the Believe Network, Believe in Chelsea, which again, I've got Believe in Chelsea and Believe in CSCW because I said I'd only do it if they took an equal approach, and they came around to my way of thinking.
Love it. Thanks so much, Rob, for coming on.
Pleasure.
Let's go around the world, over to Mexico. It's a tight race at the top of this league as always. Both America and Monterrey won last weekend, keeping just 1 point between first and second place, with Pachuca rounding out the top three. You can't take your eyes off this league for a moment.
Over to France. We're now week 2 in France, and PSG are in first place after an emphatic win over Rodez. Lyon and Montpellier are hot on their heels, who face each other next week, which means we'll probably start seeing the breakaway from the pack.
Over to Germany. Wolfsburg beat Essen 4-0 to top the league with the return of the Frauen Bundesliga. Köln and Freiburg are also taking wins this past weekend.
And to Spain, La Premier Division has finally kicked off, and we have a surprise team in the top spot. Due to goal difference, Athletic Bilbao are topping the league after a 3-0 win. Frontrunners Barcelona and Real Madrid have nothing to worry about, however they both secured 2-0 wins this weekend.
Have you checked out Total Football Analysis yet? TotalFootballAnalysis.com provides researched analysis on loads of football games, including women's football. Want to know why Miedemar scores so many goals? Do you want to explore how City have turned it around this season? Head over to TotalFootballAnalysis.com and sign up to learn more about the beautiful game. We have a special discount for listeners of the Women's Soccer Show. At checkout, type WOSO10 to get a full year for €10. That's €40 off the yearly subscription. Head over to TotalFootballAnalysis.com and type WOSO10 at checkout.
We're saving the best for last with the NWSL. We've got a lot to talk about here. We're going to kind of hop around to some highlight topics, I guess I'll call them. And first things first, to kick it off, we've got to talk San Diego Wave versus Angel City, because this was a record sellout crowd for an NWSL regular season game. We've got 32,000 sold out in the stadium, and it was a blast to see.
Yeah, I'm so excited because this is the closest you've got to a derby, really, these two. Between Portland and Ole.
Well, I mean, yeah, Portland and Seattle are really the derby, if you will. But yeah, in terms of geographical location, they are.
Yeah, and also because these are the newbies. They're the new teams that thing. So it is so exciting to see the 32,000. And it was actually quite a good game. Again, it was one of those ones where the scoreline didn't really reflect the actual game.
Yeah, that's very true.
Like, after bad-mouthing her all of last week, I thought Sheridan had such a cracking game.
I didn't think Sheridan had a bad game last week once again.
Well,
but yeah,
you didn't, I did. But
was on point this game. She was in fine form for her home crowd. Absolutely. That was a blast of a game. We have to, unfortunately, talk about and just address the serious issue that occurred at the San Diego Wave Stadium in the sellout crowd. This has been going viral on Twitter, and I applaud and commend all NWSL fans for making this go viral and really forcing clubs to respond and hopefully for the league to respond as well. Martin Marcius Jr. wrote, quote, "Drove south today to see Angel City's game versus San Diego Wave FC. Post-game, my partner and I were assaulted by a white San Diego fan who'd earlier told me to, quote, get the fuck out of our country. She dumped 2 rows and pushed a family aside just to assault us." Horrific to read. My thoughts and condolences go out to this entire family, and it's so upsetting when we have to talk about these things because especially as the game continues to grow, stuff like this, it needs to continue to be addressed, and it needs to be addressed in many different ways. We need to hold the clubs accountable. We need to hold the league accountable. And I'm really happy that the NWSL fans have been holding everybody's feet to the fire, because it's also the responsibility of fans to address this. And that means in the stands when it's happening too, frankly, if you're comfortable doing so. Because as the game continues to grow, unfortunately, that does mean that more and more people will end up in the stands, and those people may not always be ones who are there to protect the safe space that women's soccer has become.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people were, because we talked about it being a derby, and they were like, oh, it's rivalry. I'm like, no. There is a difference between rivalry and full-on racism, xenophobia, homophobia, anything like that. Like assault. This was assault.
Yeah, this had nothing to do with soccer. This was personal.
This was personal. And I think what clubs need to not be scared of, which they seem to be doing, because I don't know if they feel like women's fan bases are so fragile that if they do one thing, they're going to put a lot more people off or whatever it is. But you need to be able to crack down. Like, we've got a clear photo of this woman. We've got a video of this woman and what happened. Ban her. Mm-hmm. Ban her from ever attending any San Diego game. Like you would, like we do over here in the Premier League for the men's game. You catch them, you ban them. Mm-hmm. And there seems to be a reluctance because, like I said, I don't know if they feel like it's a fragile fandom and if they do one thing, then it's going to thing. But you need to start a hard line and a hard line now. She should be arrested, she should be charged, and she should be banned from ever attending a match ever again.
I couldn't agree more. Moving on, let's talk about the top of the table for a second, because Houston Dash are sitting in second place, and they have had just a quietly successful season so far, and we haven't gotten to talk about them very much. So why are they so successful this year?
I think they signed well. In the transfer window. I think Ebony Salmon has been an absolute revelation for them, which she was really great over here in the WSL and for Man United, then had a really quiet time at Racing Louisville, started off really well, and it just sort of stopped. Dash, however, seemed to have given her an absolute boost, and it's giving her confidence that she's now been called up to the England squad again. And I think the new manager is probably, the new manager bounce is always a good thing. And they've always been a solid team, the Dash. Like, it was for a long time, they had one focal player, which was good old Raza D, and people sort of forgot about that there are, 10 other players on that pitch, including a capped goalkeeper in Jane Campbell and stuff like that. So the Dash have been a solid team, and why they may not set the world on fire sometimes, they will get the results they need, and here we are.
Well, I actually think that they had not a great transfer window before the season started. I was questioning everything that they were doing because they seemed to be getting rid of essentially their entire defense with the exception of Chapman. And it made no sense to me. However, the signing of Maria Sanchez was huge. Filling Rachel Daly's slot, as you said, with Ebony Salmon was massive. Nichelle Prince is one of the most... here's what I think of Houston. I think they have some of the most consistent and underrated core NWSL starters. Yeah. And I think that they get overlooked because there aren't a lot of U.S. internationals. But you look at this squad and there's a bunch of internationals, right? So let's go Maria Sanchez, international, not for the U.S. Ebony Salmon, English international. Nichelle Prince, Canadian international, right? We've got Sophie Schmidt holding down the midfield, non-U.S. international. Elisa Chapman, non-U.S. international. And it just goes on and on. I'll call out that they got Didasco, the previous NWSL Defender of the Year from Gotham FC in a trade recently. That was a great move. And they are a definition of a team that you put the puzzle pieces together. And when it fits really, really well.
Yep, 100%. 100%. Now, I've really had a soft spot for the Dash, and it's really exciting to see that they won the Challenge Cup a couple of years ago, and they actually might be with a shout to actually win the league proper.
It's fun to see, though, and I think this is a testament to the NWSL as a league. The Houston Dash are sitting in second place, and you would say that they've had a dominant season. And then you look at their record, and they're 9-6-5, and you're like, that doesn't sound
very dominant.
That doesn't sound dominant, and it's just such a testament to the league because, I mean, in true Houston Dash fashion, and kind of alike to what I was just calling out about how they did really get rid of their back line. They haven't gone many games without conceding a goal. Very, very few, actually. But they can score. They can really put a goal away. And if a team wants to run up the scoreline, they can do the same. And if that's how... And they know that that's how they're going to play. They play in an attacking formation. And they go for it. All right, so from the top of the table, we have to then bump down to the bottom of the table. And we've got to talk... We've talked about Gotham a lot, but we have to just highlight this because the record for the most consecutive losses in a season in the NWSL is 10, held by the 2018 Washington Spirit. Shout out to them. Gotham are currently tied for that record. So if Gotham lose their next game, they will hold the record for the most consecutive losses in a season. And that is not something...
Not a record you want, is it?
Exactly. Not really. Interestingly enough, though, when you're looking at the bottom of the table, Gotham have won more games than Spirit or Racing Louisville. Now, they've only won one more game than them. That's getting confusing. But they have. And that in itself, the bottom of the NWSL table, these three teams, Racing, Gotham, and Washington Spirit, will be such interesting ones to watch in the off season and coming into next year, because what they do in the off season will mean everything, because Gotham could really turn this around and become a mid-table team very quickly, I think, for next year. Washington Spirit always have what it takes to win, but they need to hold on to their players. And Racing Louisville every year seems to start strong and fall. And for them, I think it's just a couple more key pieces in solidifying an environment that people want to be in, frankly.
I think that's the big thing that's coming out of Racing, is you're seeing that they will sign great players and they have the great potential and everything else, but nobody wants to stay. And like, they're losing all of them. They're making crazy trades. Like, we talk about the transfer window, and they're trading for basically peanuts for some of their best players. For like, okay, I'm not the best person to talk about the draft, but like, I think you could get a lot more money for certain players, or they've picked for really random draft picks that isn't going to make any difference to them whatsoever.
Yeah. A link to our previous conversation today, I think you called that out well. Like, it's not just on the head coach. This is a much deeper problem over there. Yeah. Well, NWSL has a fun midweek game today, Wednesday, when this episode is dropping. We've got 4 games to make up any of those games in hand. Gotham is hosting OL Reign. Orlando is hosting North Carolina. Portland is hosting Racing. And Angel City is hosting Washington Spirit. So we've got a lot of bottom of the table teams playing top table teams, seeing if they can play the upsetter. And that's what we got for today. You want to take us out, Allie?
So everybody follow us on our socials. We've got Twitter, we've got Instagram. I'm reliably informed that we now do TikTok. As you can tell, that's not mine.
We don't do TikTok. We just got a TikTok. So everybody, just level set your expectations. We just got a TikTok.
Check out our Patreon. We've got some exclusive interviews on there. We've been busy all summer talking to the best people. So check out our Patreon for that exclusive, as well as news and 10 and fits and kits. But as ever, I've been Ali.
I've been Sarah.
And this has been the Women's Soccer Show.
Thanks, everybody.
This podcast was edited by Monkey Hill Media. Visit monkeyhillmedia.com for more information.